In Yemen, tropical cyclone Tej mops the country, killing at least 2.
Authorities say hundreds of families are still residing in shelters and schools. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Japan reaffirms its commitment to investing projects in the Philippines. The Philippines to file an environmental case against China over coral harvesting in Iroquois Reef. Firm leaders gather in Papua New Guinea for the Global Indigenous Business Forum. Hamas leaders visit Russia for a hostage release deal. And Hurricane Otis continues to lash Mexico. The Office of the President issued on Friday a memorandum circular allowing work-from-home arrangements for government employees and asynchronous classes for public schools on Tuesday, October the 31st. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin said this to afford government employees full opportunity to observe the holidays as well as travel to and from different regions in the country. He clarified that government agencies whose functions involve the delivery of basic and health services, response to disasters, or performance of other vital services shall continue with their usual operations. He also said a similar arrangement for work in private companies and classes in private schools is left to the discretion of their respective heads. A 2 peso per kilo increase on rice was implemented on market price. This is due to the uptick in the farm gate prices of unhusked rice. Grain Retailers Confederation of the Philippines, or GRECON, said the price of unhusked rice in the Visayan region rose to 19 pesos per kilo from 17 pesos. Meanwhile, the buying price of unhusked rice in Luzon is at 27 pesos per kilo. GRECON said there is still available rice in the market that can be bought for 40 pesos per kilo.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, implemented an unscheduled interest rate hike on Thursday and is considering another increase next month to combat rising inflation. The policy rate has been raised to 6.5%, with overnight deposit interest rates at 6% and lending facilities at 7%. The last off-cycle rate hike occurred in July of the previous year when the BSP acted to address soaring inflation triggered by the onset of the Ukraine war. The Monetary Board acknowledged that these rate hikes were affecting economic growth, but the nation's medium-term growth outlook remains mostly unaffected.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, reported that about 2.4 million Filipino job seekers were hired via public employment offices in 2022. This is through the help of Public Employment Service Offices, or PESOs, by local government units nationwide. The agency disclosed that this translates to a 91% placement rate across the country. DOLE added that a 6% increase was seen compared to the previous year. Labor Secretary Bienvenido Laguesma underscored the urgency for open and constructive dialogue with PESO managers across the nation. The Philippine government is keen on its goal to improve employability as the Marcos administration imposed the Trabajo para sa Bayan Act last month. This to address unemployment, underemployment, and other challenges in the country's labor market.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has enacted Republic Act No. 11964, which categorizes local government units, or LGUs, by their income, establishing a framework for financial grants and other forms of assistance. This law aims to institutionalize the automatic income classification of LGUs, providing a more responsive approach to bolster the local economy and unlock their full economic potential. Under this legislation, municipalities will be categorized into 5 classes based on their income ranges and the average annual regular income over 3 fiscal years before the reclassification of their general income. The Department of Finance, in collaboration with the Department of Budget and Management and in consultation with LGU leagues, will formulate the implementing rules and regulations within 3 months of the law's enactment.
The Manila International Airport Authority announces that airlines are well prepared to handle the anticipated average of 1.2 million travelers during the upcoming holiday season. Natalie Pichi tells us more.
Airlines such as Cebu Pacific, Philippine Airlines, and AirAsia have implemented backup plans to ensure smooth operations even in the face of unexpected events like bad weather conditions. Additionally, the Philippine Coast Guard or PCG is deploying 20,000 personnel to maintain security at ports as large crowds head to the provinces for the barangay and Sangguniang Kabataang elections. The PCG spokesperson Armand Balilo has mentioned that an extra 10,000 personnel are on standby should the need arise. Travelers are advised by the Coast Guard to adhere to all safety guidelines and regulations during their journeys to avoid any inconveniences. Natalie Pichi reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Israel has pledged financial aid to the families of 4 Filipinos who tragically lost their lives in a surprise attack by Hamas militants. According to Israeli ambassador to the Philippines, Ilan Flas, as long as the victims are documented, the Israeli government will acknowledge them as victims of terrorism. Meanwhile, the Department of Migrant Workers has identified 170 overseas Filipino workers in the initial group set to return from Lebanon. This move coincides with escalating tensions between Israel and Hezbollah, the Lebanese militant group. Although booking flights has proven to be challenging, the agency assures the public that repatriation efforts are underway.
Japanese Ambassador Kazuhiko Koshikawa reiterated Japan's commitment to continue investing in the Philippines projects. The Japanese envoy reaffirmed the very strong and solid economic ties between the two countries. He added that Japan is willing to help achieve a thriving future for Filipinos and investors. A big chunk of Japanese investment in the country went into infrastructure projects. Among these, the North-South Commuter Railway, Metro Manila Subway Project, and the MRT-3 rehabilitation. Koshikawa underscores the urgency to develop more disaster prevention-related infrastructure in the country. This is to provide an opportunity for Japanese firms to advance their experience, know-how, and technology.
The Philippine government is poised to file an environmental case against China concerning extensive coral harvesting in the West Philippine Sea. Justice Secretary Boyeng Remulla underscores that this incident not only impacts the Philippines, but also has global repercussions. Significant evidence includes the devastation of coral reefs and the disruption of marine life in the West Philippine Sea region. The Philippine Coast Guard confirmed these allegations in September, citing damaged and harvested corals, along with a near-total absence of marine life in Iroquois Reef and Sabina Shoal. The Department of Justice emphasizes that there is already substantial evidence at hand, but they are committed to gathering more to build a robust case. Coming up, Sudan's rapid support forces make major headway. Hamas leaders travel to Moscow for negotiations. And the UN votes on the Israel-Gaza war. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
We are in a world where technology and entertainment seamlessly merge to create unforgettable experiences. And in this fast-paced digital age, the need for cutting-edge broadcast systems and integrated solutions has never been greater. With us is a visionary leader in the world of broadcast systems integration. Engineer Jason Mar Hernando is one of the partners and president of BMH Systems Solutions Incorporated, a company committed to pushing the boundaries of possibility and making your screen come alive. We'll have a discussion on what goes behind the scenes in terms of broadcast systems solution, as BMH is now open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, on Friday said it's 100% ready for the coming barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections on October 30. COMELEC Chairman George Garcia also said all election paraphernalia is already in the Office of Treasurer in all provinces and has been distributed to all cities and municipalities. All registered voters can vote from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. except for those in Naga and Muntinlupa, which voting precincts are already open at 5 a.m. for senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and pregnant women. COMELEC prepared precinct finders for any registered voter who wants to check or verify their voting precincts. The poll body also place accessible places for senior citizens, persons with disabilities, and pregnant women. There are also emergency booths in voting centers. Garcia also reminded the voters to vote early.
Ating po mga botante, mas maganda po magdala na tayo ng sarili nating kodigo. Huwag po tayong gagamit ng cellphone sa loob po ng presinto. Hindi man namin yan kukumpiskahin, hindi namin yan kukuhanin, pero bawal niyo pong picturean ng inyong mga balota. Hindi po kayo hahanapan ng kahit na anong uri ng pagkakakilanlan o kahit anong ID.
Meanwhile, the Department of Education, or DepEd, will be deploying around 500,000 of its teachers and personnel for the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan election on Monday. This is through DepEd Memorandum Number 63, establishing the 2023 BSKE Task Force. The agency also conducted a nationwide orientation and training of task force members. The training covered details on mob voting, early voting for senior citizens and persons with disabilities, election procedures, and others. According to DepEd, it will deploy 494,662, of which 382,793 will serve as electoral boards, 25,196 will serve as supervising officials, 68,873 will serve as barangay board of canvassers, and 17,800 will serve in other capacities. DepEd also reminded its officials and personnel not to interfere and engage in any partisan political activity except to vote. On Thursday, China's top diplomat Wang Yi voiced hope for more stable relations with the United States as he paid a rare trip to the country. In preparation for a potential visit by President Xi Jinping in the U.S., Wang began by meeting Secretary of State Antony Blinken with a constructive conversation that included a closed-door dinner. President Joe Biden has invited Xi next month to participate in the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC summit, but also stood firm on China in the run-up, keeping a stream of targeted sanctions and staunchly backing U.S. allies in disputes with Beijing. Wang will speak at the White House with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. No meeting has been announced with Biden, however, but an encounter is widely expected after she received Blinken in Beijing.
所以，中美双方需要对话，我们要恢复对话，我们更要深入对话、全面对话，通过对话来增进我们的相互了解，消除误解和误判。那么，不断地寻求和扩大共识，开展互利合作，推动双边关系止跌企稳，尽快回到健康、稳定、可持续的发展轨道。
China's former Premier Li Keqiang has died at the age of 68. State media reported Li passed away in Shanghai early on Friday morning following a sudden heart attack.
对李克强同志因突发心脏病不幸逝世表示沉痛哀悼。新华社已经发布了消息，你可以查阅。
Li served as China's second-ranking leader after General Secretary Xi Jinping.
150 international delegates from 14 countries, along with 350 participants, joined this year's World Indigenous Business Forum in Papua New Guinea. In Port Moresby, Agila-Flores tells us more.
It is Papua New Guinea's pride and joy to host the 14th World Indigenous Business Forum. Speakers from different countries talked about connecting and sharing with and inspiring people when it comes to the business world.
What's important is an assessment of the overall economic situation and understanding what creates a solid, sustainable economy for the people of the country are the indigenous and small business owners, those entrepreneurs. They're the ones that take risks, and they're the ones that take risks on our own people.
The three-day global event was held at the APEC House in Port Moresby, organized by Papua New Guinea's leaders.
All in all, we are looking for more trade, investment, creation of more jobs, and the development of our economy and our country. As a result of investment in hosting such a world event. After this forum, we'll be going down to Australia for the PNG Mining and Petroleum Conference.
On behalf of our country, I extend a warm welcome to our distinguished international delegates to this remarkable city of Port Moresby, where the greatest of 1,000 tribes is in one amazing city.
Prime Minister James Marape urges investors to explore trade opportunities in Papua New Guinea.
Government is also cognizant of the fact that we need to have the enabling environments. We're working our very best to eliminate impediments in commerce, trade, and business to ensure our local business prosper and grow.
Local business owners showcase products, forge partnerships, and widen market prospects among the diverse countries represented at the forum. From Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eco Hortaleza Quinola, Matalang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, which are in opposition to Sudan's army in the ongoing civil war, have announced that they've gained control of the country's second-largest city outside of the Khartoum area. The RSF claims to have taken over the army's main headquarters in Nyala, securing all of its equipment, marking a potential turning point in this 6-month-long conflict. As of now, Sudan's army has not responded to the claim, and the country's network blackout makes it challenging to immediately verify the paramilitary's assertion. The conflict has already led to the displacement of at least 670,000 residents from their homes in the South Darfur region, where Nyala is located.
The United States conducted strikes on 2 facilities in Syria used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Iran-backed groups. These strikes were in response to a series of attacks against American forces in Iraq and Syria, which resulted in injuries to 21 people, with most of them suffering from traumatic brain injuries. The Biden administration pledged to respond to these attacks, which they attributed to armed groups supported by Iran. They clarified that the action was taken in self-defense with no intention of engaging in further hostilities. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also emphasized that these strikes were not connected to the Israel-Hamas conflict.
The United States National Security Council spokesman John Kirby claims Russia is suffering significant losses in its new offensive in Ukraine.
Since the 11th of October, Russia has suffered significant losses in this offensive attempt of theirs, including at least 125 armored vehicles around Avdiivka and more than a battalion's worth of equipment. We expect more Russian attacks to come. This is a dynamic conflict, and we need to remember that Russia still maintains some offensive capability and may be able to achieve some tactical gains in the coming months.
Kirby also claims that Russia is throwing poorly trained soldiers into the fight. He says Moscow's new offensive troops have no proper equipment or support. Kirby also renewed a plea for Congress to pass more than $60 billion in supplemental funding for Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims that Russia gains from the Israel-Hamas conflict as Hamas officials visit Moscow. Zelensky suggests that Russia will endeavor to bring the West towards a second front, which is the current Middle East conflict. The Hamas team is discussing the release of foreign hostages, including Russians in Gaza. Musa Abu Marzouk, a Hamas founder and leader living in Qatar, led the delegation in talks with Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov. Russian President Vladimir Putin recently cautioned against an Israeli ground invasion of Gaza, fearing a wider regional conflict. He emphasized Russia's priority to halt bloodshed and prevent the conflict from spreading beyond the Middle East borders.
Russian Foreign Ministry said a delegation from Hamas is in Moscow for talks on the release of foreign hostages in Gaza. Sources also said 2 of the hostages are Russian citizens. News agencies in Russia also confirmed that senior Hamas member Abu Marzouk was among those attending the talks. Russia has repeatedly called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, insisting that negotiations for peace must resume immediately. President Vladimir Putin's government is reportedly to have ties to Israel, Hamas, Iran, and Palestine. Hamas praised Putin's efforts but insisted the crimes of Israel are supported by the West.
United States House Speaker Mike Johnson says the Biden administration failed to provide reasons for its budget allocation in support of Ukraine. Johnson explains that Republicans do not oppose giving aid to Ukraine, but he says the American people want to know the objective or end game of the United States in providing help to Ukraine. The speaker says the American people are also demanding real accountability from the White House. Johnson's remarks came after the Biden administration asked Congress to approve more than $60 billion in aid for Kyiv. A group of Republican senators is now seeking to decouple funding for Israel from that of Ukraine. Analysts say the renewed pushback by Republicans comes as the Pentagon announced concerns over depleting funds to support both Ukraine and Israel.
The United States is strongly resisting calls for a Gaza ceasefire, raising questions about its objectives in supporting the Israeli offensive. President Joe Biden has pledged unwavering support for Israel while cautioning against expanding the conflict, which presents conflicting goals. The White House denies any plans to deploy American troops on the ground, but has increased its military presence in the region. They have also sent advisors to assist the Israel Defense Forces in planning a potential ground invasion of Gaza. Biden also recently warned Iran's leader that the U.S. would respond to any attacks on American service members in the Middle East, following a series of attacks on U.S. troops and installations since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. This presents a possible escalation of the conflict as the region is once again engulfed in rampant violence.
After 5 hours of closed-door discussions, the European Union leaders have reached an agreement to call for pauses for humanitarian needs, allowing aid into Gaza. Despite Spain's last-minute efforts to push for stronger language resembling a more lasting ceasefire, this compromise was achieved. European Council President Charles Michel expressed satisfaction with the strong unity among EU leaders during a press conference following the first day of the two-day summit in Brussels. Michel's remarks coincided with foreign ministers debating the phrasing of a humanitarian pause or pauses in line with the bloc's agenda. However, this fragile EU consensus may prove short-lived if Israel proceeds with a full-fledged ground invasion of Gaza.
The 193 members of the United Nations General Assembly are set to vote on a ceasefire for the Israel-Hamas conflict this Friday. However, as an observer, Palestine will not have a say in the matter. They are merely allowed to talk and lobby their position, but aren't allowed to vote on their position. Representing Arab nations, Jordan has put forth a General Assembly resolution which includes a call for a humanitarian ceasefire. This move follows the inaction of the smaller yet more powerful UN Security Council. In a special session this week, the Palestinian foreign minister also addressed the council. Still, as a non-member observer, the country lacks the same participation rights as full UN member states.
Venezuelan security forces have seized control of a second gang-run prison in a month. On Wednesday, police and soldiers stormed the Tocoyito prison southwest of the capital, Caracas. Myla Simbulan has that story.
Cocoyito prison houses more than 2,000 inmates and is the country's most populated. Among the other amenities uncovered by authorities is a studio where prisoners would film music videos and upload them to YouTube. They also confiscated weapons and ammunition. Inmates at the prison included gang leader Nestor Ricardi Sequeira Campos. His songs racked up hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. Campos had served a 20-year sentence for murder and should have been released in 2018. Instead, prison officials say he decided to stay behind bars as if it were a resort. A spokesman for a prison rights group says prisoners have been in charge of the country's jails for years. They finance their operations by charging inmates for vaccines, drug trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and other criminal activities. Myla Simbulan for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, residents of Lewiston, Maine are locking up as a lone gunman is still at large. The United States healthcare system is experiencing a mental health crisis. And UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak warns about the risks of AI. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Sa bagong bukas na Goodwill. Buti na lang tutok si Lloyd sa work. Lloyd? Hoy!
Hoy!
Mukhang distracted ata ang ating bida.
Sara. Lodi, attorney, may fire marshal dun sa labas.
Naku naman, may problema pang dumagdag.
Pinapaikot niyo lang ako eh.
Hindi ho. Mukhang di na kinaya ni Julius ang stress.
So ano problema?
Problema?
Engineer Tony, yan yung tatay ni Lloyd.
Hala, nagkagulo na talaga. Tatay nga ba ni Lloyd ang kausap niya?
Yes!
Papasa kaya sila sa inspection ng fire marshal?
Siyan mo lang, boy!
Kung di ka na din mapakali, manood at abangan ang mangyayari sa mga kaganapan sa Goodwill Season 3 dito lang sa Net25.
People in the war-torn nation of Yemen on the Arabian Peninsula are mopping up after a cyclone struck the country this week. The storm killed at least 2 people and has left about 10,000 homeless. Rex Dulay reports.
Cyclone Tej hit Monday, but continued to churn over the country, hampering rescue efforts. Telecommunications have been disrupted. The cyclone flooded roads and submerged cars, forcing the Red Crescent to temporarily suspend operations. Hundreds of families are staying in shelters and schools. Although the storm has weakened, telecommunications are still cut off. A report by the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Norwegian Red Cross says the Arabian Peninsula's poorest country has been hit by 6 cyclones in the past 6 years. That's up from 4 in the preceding 25 years. Yemen also experienced heavy flooding in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Rex Dulay for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Mexican beach resort of Acapulco is dealing with the death and destruction left behind after Hurricane Otis raged through the region. The Category 5 storm claimed more than 2,000 lives. Crisan Fregata reports.
As of Thursday, the death toll from Hurricane Otis stood at 27 with 4 people missing. 3 of the missing are soldiers. Otis crashed into Acapulco Wednesday, packing winds of up to 270 kilometers per hour. The storm shattered windows, damaged roofs, and cut off communications and road links with the region. Flash flooding has left hundreds of people homeless. The storm overturned vehicles and even left a car in the lobby of a luxury hotel surrounded by broken glass and debris. Some walked for hours through mud and debris seeking shelter and food. As the military worked to clear the streets of mud and fallen trees, some residents looted stores for food, water, and other goods. When President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador visited the scene Wednesday, landslides blocked his convoy, forcing officials to walk part of the way. Lopez Obrador has promised to airlift aid and materials to the region. Cristiana Fergara for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
A small city in northeastern U.S. resembles a ghost town a day after a crazed gunman went on a shooting rampage, killing at least 18 people. Residents of Lewiston, Maine have been told to shelter in place while the suspect continues to elude a police dragnet. Thomas I. Likeness reports.
The trouble began Wednesday night when a gunman opened fire at a bar and in a bowling alley, spraying the crowds with bullets from his assault-style weapon. 24 hours later, police still haven't found him. They know who the suspect is, Robert Card, a military reservist. He spent 2 weeks last summer in a mental hospital. He had been committed after hearing voices and threats to shoot up a military base. Lewiston resident Anthony Nadeau says that's something people should not ignore.
People out there need to speak up. If they see something that doesn't look right, even if it's your best friend, if they're acting a little off, figure it out. Try to figure it out for them.
The day after the tragedy, the streets of Lewiston are empty. People remain in their homes, doors locked, many with the shades drawn, fearful the gunman may appear. Schools have been closed. Public buildings and many businesses are shuttered, not only in Lewiston, but in cities as far away as 80 kilometers. And there's the inevitable talk that something has to be done about gun violence. Software engineer Kyle Green doubts that talk will translate into anything.
I'll be 100% honest. I'd love to tell you that maybe this is the one that spurs some sort of action. If we're honest, and I'll be honest, it won't be.
Green is probably right. Lawmakers in the nation's capital seem to lack the political will to introduce measures restricting firearms. The focus seems to be on protecting the country's Second Amendment, giving people the right to bear arms, rather than protecting ordinary citizens from guns. Thomas I. Likeness from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Peruvian police have made a huge cocaine seizure. The anti-drug squad seized nearly 3 tons of the white powder destined for the United States. Danica Lee reports.
Peruvian police confiscated the drugs from 2 boats intercepted off the coastal cities of Pirua and Tumbes. They are located on the country's border with Ecuador. 6 people have been arrested, including 3 Ecuadorians and a Colombian. Police say the street value of the drugs is more than $91 million. Peruvian President Dina Boluarte attended the news conference where police announced the seizure. She says her government will continue to support law enforcement in its war against illicit drug trafficking. After Colombia, Peru is the world's 2nd largest producer of cocaine. Danica Lee for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Paraguayan police have seized 3.3 tons of cocaine headed to Europe. Authorities said the drug was secretly stashed in rice bags. Local officials quantify the shipment at around $1.4 billion. Data shows from 2018 to 2022, 1,847 people were arrested by the police in drug trafficking-related operations.
Brazil is touting a medical breakthrough it says will help treat crack and cocaine addicts. Scientists say it works like a vaccine. Julian Bukayan reports.
The vaccine is called Calyx Coca. Researchers say it triggers an immune response that blocks crack and cocaine from reaching the brain. In other words, addicts would no longer get high from the drug. It's hoped that this will help them break free of their addiction. It has been tested on animals, and the next step is human trials. And there's a lineup of people who want to be included in that phase. Dr. Frederico Garcia says more than 3,000 people have contacted his research team to take part in the trials. The vaccine has won a €500,000 prize sponsored by the Euro Health Awards for Latin American medicine. Brazil is the world's second largest consumer of cocaine, behind the United States. Julian Bukayan from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
At least 50 deaths linked to a website promoting self-harm are connected to the failure of British authorities. Stephanie Mayo has the story.
BBC published their own investigation of a chilling epidemic of deaths linked to a website that promotes self-harm. BBC refused to name the website, which they claim to be accessible to anyone, including children, and is linked to at least 50 deaths. Based on their investigation, BBC found that coroners sent reports and warnings to the government and the police, and that at least 5 police forces are aware of the existence of the forum, but authorities have been unable to take action. BBC said that families of the dead, the youngest just 17, say that the authorities' failure to act led to more avoidable deaths, and they are demanding an inquiry. The forum, with more than 40,000 members worldwide, is hosted abroad and is popular among those struggling with depression and thoughts on self-harm. Some of the posts in the forum are graphic in nature, including an image of a package that apparently contains poison, which arrived by courier, which was ordered by a child. If you or someone you know is suffering from emotional distress or struggling from depression, go to
According to a new Centers for Disease Control and Prevention report, the number of U.S. healthcare workers who reported harassment at work in 2018 more than doubled in 2022. This, the report says, has significant implications for health workers' mental health. Rosel Feria tells us more.
CDC's new Vital Signs issue reports that the pandemic presented unique challenges that may have further impaired health worker mental health from 2018 to 2022. These challenges may have also increased health workers' intent to quit their jobs. More than double the number of health workers reported harassment at work in 2022 than in 2018. Harassment may include threats, bullying, verbal abuse, or other actions from patients and co-workers that create a hostile work environment. The health agency is calling on employers to modify working conditions and change aspects of the organizational structure associated with health workers' poor mental health. The study suggests changes that include allowing health workers to participate in decision-making, building trust in management, providing supervisor assistance, and enough time to complete work. It also encourages preventing and paying attention to harassment reports. In Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
2 workers at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant were hospitalized after accidentally getting sprayed with radioactive waste. Initial reports said a group of workers was cleaning a pipe when the drainage hose suddenly came off. The 2 victims were splashed with the tainted liquid waste. A spokesman for the TEPCO said the radiation levels of the 2 men were at or above 4 becquerels per square centimeter. Their scientists determined the radiation threshold to be safe.
State media reported that Chinese police have rescued more than 1,000 cats from an illicit trade of feline meat. This is after animal welfare activists stopped a truck carrying the felines in Zhangjiagang City. Authorities said the cats were set to be slaughtered and to be served as little tiger, pork and lamb skewers, and in most cases, sausages. Activists said cat meat can reach up to 4.5 yuan per catty, or roughly equivalent to 600 grams. They add a cat can yield 4 to 5 kilos of meat. A local outlet said the cats were safe and transferred to a shelter.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says that governments must be honest about the risk posed by artificial intelligence. This as he prepares to host a global summit on the issue in Britain next week. Naya Dames has more details.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of the United Kingdom says the bringing together of world leaders, experts, and others aims to build a shared global understanding of the risks posed by AI. Sunak announces that Britain would create an AI Safety Institute to examine and test new types of AI and explore its risks. Risks that include social harms like bias and misinformation. Written with the support of 50 experts, a government study warns that AI has the potential to enhance terrorist capabilities. How? In developing weapons, planning attacks, and producing propaganda. It says generative AI, which creates text and images from written prompts, significantly increases risks to safety and security. Furthermore, by 2025, generative AI is anticipated to be more likely to amplify existing risks than create wholly new ones, but will increase sharply the speed and scale of some threats. The study further recommends that industry, academia, civil society, governments, and the public all collaborate to help regulate the sphere. Naya Dames from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Canada, a pro-Palestinian group calls to boycott a Jewish-owned Toronto cafe. City leaders say targeting a business because of its owner's race or religion is wrong and appalling. Ashley Sakmar reports.
Over the weekend, hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters showed up outside of a Jewish-owned business in Toronto, calling for people to boycott the restaurant. Café Landor originated as a simple coffee house in Berlin in 1919. However, when the Nazis rose to power in 1933, the owners took the coffee house to Tel Aviv, eventually growing the franchise across Israel. Currently, there are 6 locations of the restaurant cafe in Toronto. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow says that targeting a business in this way is wrong. She calls Toronto a global city where tragic events happening around the world are felt deeply. Other Toronto politicians also condemn the protests and singling out of businesses just because they are Jewish-owned. City Councillor Brad Bradford calls the protest appalling. The said protesters are allegedly affiliated with a group called Toronto for Palestine and have called the restaurant chain the Zionist Cafe and have targeted the staff working at Café Landor. According to Toronto Police Chief Myron Damkew, the daily average of hate-related reports rose by 132% since the Israel-Hamas war started. In Toronto, Ontario, Ashley Sakmar from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
11 gold pieces valued at $63.6 million belonging to Ukraine's historical heritage were recovered by police in Madrid. Initial reports say the gold artifacts left Ukraine before 2016 after being displayed at an exhibition in Kyiv. The pieces include intricate necklaces, bracelets, and earrings and are dated from the Greco-Scythian period between the 8th and 4th centuries BC.
La investigación se inició cuando agentes de la Policía Nacional tuvieron conocimiento de que había una serie de joyas de oro de gran valor histórico y económico procedentes de Ucrania que estaban siendo comercializadas por un ciudadano ucraniano afincado en Madrid.
Police have arrested 3 Spanish citizens and 2 Ukrainian citizens. Authorities said the suspects were exposed when they sold one of the stolen items in a private auction.
Scientists announced the discovery of 2 new coral reefs and seamounts in Galapagos Islands. The pristine deep coral reefs measure more than 800 meters long, spanning the length of 8 football fields. They also rest in cold waters up to 420 meters below the surface. Scientists said the newfound reefs are protected from human influence and the direct impacts of warming waters, escaping the hurtful effects of global warming.
Coming right up, Europe's central bank halts interest hikes. AI advancements pose a big security risk. And catch Jordan's entry into the Oscars on Netflix. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Ito ang inyong sumbong siguradong may responding katapat. Hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sino man ang nangangailangan. Viral ngayon, magulang ng sanggol na namatay dahil umano sa kapabayaan ng isang ospital sa Quezon City, lumantad sa responde.
Mas matatanggap ko pa kung naging aksidente. Pero hindi kasi malpractice.
Expose. Delikado at napakadilim na eskinita sa Lower Bikutan sa lungsod ng Taguig, inireklamo. Exclusive. Ina ng isang warrior o batang may sakit nananawagan na mapagawa ang kanilang bahay, ating nirespondehan. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi, ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
For the first time in over a year, the European Central Bank, or ECB, decided to leave interest rates unchanged on Thursday. The ECB joins the United States Federal Reserve, Bank of England, and others in holding borrowing costs steady. In Europe, inflation peaked at a hurtful 10.6% in early October for the 20 countries that use the euro currency. Analysts say the high prices have affected consumer spending and drained household finances with added costs for necessities such as food, heat, and electricity. But analysts expect that since the inflation is down now to 4.3%, the ECB should hold off on more hikes. Some financial experts worry about the weakening economic growth in Europe. The war in the Middle East has threatened to raise oil prices. Economists say the war adds uncertainty to Europe as the region heavily depends on imported energy from the Middle East. A global head of the international bank says the ECB won't be in any rush to take further action, but ECB will use a welcome pause to wait for more data points on the delayed impact of the rate hikes and developments in the oil price. AI-generated images pose potential threats to biometric security protocols. JD Mahinay for the report.
Modern technology has become more advanced over the years as the emergence of artificial intelligence has paved the way for automation. AI, with its capability to learn like humans, has given birth to chatbots, driverless cars, generated images, audio, and more. Tech firms are developing their own AI technologies to improve their operation and outpace competitors. One example is the computer program text-to-image model Stable Diffusion. Using command prompts, Stable Diffusion is capable of generating photorealistic images given any text input. This, however, poses threats on individual security, mostly on face recognition biometrics. Facial recognition systems, especially on common smartphones, lie at Class 2. Which can be easily bypassed by an AI-generated image as it lacks depth sensing features. Catfishing and fraudulent biometric bypasses are also feasible with AI-generative photos. An AI fed with enough data can produce realistic generated output. Technology experts can exploit AI's generative capabilities and be used in crimes such as scamming or hacking into phones using facial recognition locks. Meanwhile, various organizations are settling to formulate their own regulation on AI. This includes the European Commission, which is proposing a legal framework on AI, as well as the United States Congress. JD Mahinay reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
College athletes under the NIL rule are staying longer in school and completely changing the game in college sports. Catherine Ortula has the score.
Short for name, image, and likeness, and NIL refers to various ways American college athletes can receive compensation with having any of the aforementioned featured for commercial gain. As local businesses are supporting them, star athletes and their respective communities are receiving lavish gifts. Because student athletes are considered amateurs and therefore not allowed to receive monetary compensation for their athletic accomplishments, they are receiving elaborate incentives. They profit from their name, image, and likeness through marketing and promotional gimmicks, including social media posts. One consequence of the NIL rule is that college athletes are staying longer in school, and according to Utah coach Kyle Whittingham, this practice is becoming more prevalent because amateur athletes can earn money through NIL and, in some cases, do better than they would in the National Football League or NFL. As of now, the National Collegiate Athletics Association, or NCAA, has stated that the current NIL rules are temporary until Congress has the opportunity to create national laws allowing for clearer regulations regarding NIL deals. Catherine Ortula for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A much-anticipated new Beatles record created with the help of artificial intelligence will be released next week on November 2. The track has sparked animated discussions amongst tourists, tour guides, and music experts in the band's birth city of Liverpool. Last Beatles song set for release next week. From Europe, here's Beverly Madrid for the details.
Former band members Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr revealed Thursday that a highly anticipated new Beatles album, created with the help of artificial intelligence, will be released next week on November 2. Now and Then, first written and sung by former Beatle John Lennon and developed by the rest of the band, has finally been finished by McCartney and Starr and AI decades after its original recording. 81-year-old McCartney announced its imminent release in June in what has been dubbed in a promotional trailer as the last Beatles song. The song will be released at 1 p.m. GMT on November 2 by Apple Corps, Capitol, and Universal Music Enterprises, and a music video will debut the following day. A 12-minute documentary written and directed by Oliver Murray, best known for a 2022 biographical miniseries about the Rolling Stones, will premiere on YouTube before including commentary from McCartney and Starr. Now and Then was recorded by Lennon in the late 1970s at his home in New York's Dakota Building and also features piano music. In collaboration with Peter Jackson, the film director behind the 2021 documentary series The Beatles Get Back, AI was used to separate Lennon's voice from the piano chords. McCartney and Starr finished the song last year, including the electric and acoustic guitar of their fellow ex-Beatle George Harrison, recorded in 1995. Recording at Capitol Studios in Los Angeles, they also added Starr's drum part along with bass, piano, a Harrison-inspired McCartney slide guitar solo, and more backing vocals. Starr added the process was the closest they'll ever come to having Lennon back in the room, so it was very emotional for all of them. AI has now made that possible, though its use in music is the subject of industry-wide debate, with some denouncing copyright abuses and others praising its prowess. McCartney said earlier this year that the technology's use was kind of scary but exciting because it's the future. Sean Ono Lennon, the son of Lennon and Ono, said it was incredibly touching to hear the former Beatles working together again after all the years that his dad had been gone. Now and Then will be released as a double A-side with the band's 1962 debut single Love Me Do and cover art by US artist Ed Ruscha. This is Beverly Madrid, UK Bureau for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Given the turbulent times right now, it's important to stay educated and read up on the most important stories happening around us. But if you're too tired to read up on your history, you can now watch it in the comfort of your home. Stephanie Mayo's review is in.
Before a possible pullout on Netflix, catch Farha, the coming-of-age story of a 14-year-old Palestinian girl amid the violent upheaval in 1948, the year Israel declared independence. Released in December last year, both Netflix and the film were fiercely criticized by Israeli politicians, including Israel's finance minister Avigdor Lieberman. Israeli politicians claim that the movie distorts history and should be boycotted along with Netflix. The movie depicts Nabka, or the horrors that Palestinians collectively experienced, including a series of massacres historians stated were carried out by Israeli forces. Plus, it shows the forced exodus of 750,000 Palestinians from their homeland. Farha was selected as Jordan's official entry for the 95th Academy Awards and provides a Palestinian perspective to a global audience. Stream it on Netflix. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
And it is a Friday.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend. And to end the week, here's a quote from American rapper Jason Terrence Phillips, better known by his stage name Jada Kiss. Life is short, tomorrow's not promised, so to be there with my kids and do things with them and go on family vacations, this is more valuable than anything.
I don't have kids, but I do have a grandmother who I really love, and I am excited to be celebrating her birthday with her this weekend.
Happy birthday to her.
I think it's important for us to really spend our weekends with our family, the people we love, and for ourselves as well, right?
And I remember you saying some nights ago that while we can't control the things that are happening around us, we can be in control of our little circles, such as family.
And we can start with that. Happy weekend once again, everybody. That's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.